All right, Joy, you're going to tell us about some of your best and worst airline travel experiences.
Yes. Well, I think I'll start out with the worst one, then I'll talk about the best one. The worst one that I ever experienced, Justin experienced with me, you experienced with me, and that was our flight back in 1990 when we flew back from England on Delta Airlines. The plane didn't crash, I have to say that, but it was one of those big-bodied airplanes where there were like two seats by the window, where there was a window seat, another seat, an aisle, a long row in the middle of seats, another aisle, and then two more seats and the window. And Justin and I were in the middle section, and we had a
We were in the
woman.
middle of the middle section.
We were in the middle of the middle section. On one side of us, we had a crippled lady who had, I don't remember whether she had canes or crutches or whatever, but they were right next to her, so it would have been very difficult to get over her. And on the other side, on Justin's side, he had a woman with a baby she was holding in her arms. And so it meant that we didn't get up very often because it either meant crawling over a crippled lady or crawling over a woman with a baby and potentially waking up the baby and causing problems like that. And at that time, you didn't have these nice little movie screens, TV screens in the back of the seat in front of you. It was a big screen. You know, so many seats had a screen, so many more seats had another screen, and so forth. And unfortunately, our movie screen didn't work. So no movies or TV or anything like that for us. And the overhead reading light also didn't work. So basically, Justin and I sat in the middle and didn't move very much for the 12-hour flight all the way back from England to the United States. That was our worst.
Well, you forgot to mention that it was so dark you couldn't read or do anything like that.
That's right. It was so dark that we couldn't read or do anything like that. So we sat there in the dark for 12 hours. Pretty much. I think we got up once or twice. I think I actually did crawl over the crippled lady, and Justin probably crawled over the lady with the baby. But that's my worst. Now, I have to say, I don't recall the flight being real bumpy, so that's a different sort of flight. But just in terms of
That
general,
makes the flight fun.
no, it doesn't make the flight fun.
Well, that's a subjective opinion, really.
In terms of the accommodations and the amenities that the airline provided, that was the worst. And then the best flight that I took, Justin was also with me, and that's when we went to South Africa. And we flew on South African Airlines. And it was a really nice new plane. And they had all sorts of nice features on it. For one thing, I remember them coming around with like little hot cloths, wet hot cloths before they served meals, so you could sort of like wash your hands and sort of like tidy up before you had your food. And they also had a camera mounted on the tail of the plane. So as the plane was flying along, you could see the clouds, you could see, other things, other planes in the sky and things like that. And the meals were good, the service was good. That was probably my best flying experience. Certainly my best flying experience. My flying experiences are much more limited than Justin's, but of the flights that I have taken, those two definitely stand out for totally different reasons.
Any significant childhood flights come to mind?
Well, there was one flight that I don't remember at all that I was on. I was only 6 weeks, maybe 2 months old, and I flew back from England to America with my mother, and it was a very, very rough flight. As I said, I have no recollection whatsoever of it, but it was a very rough flight, my mother said, and, when the passengers got off the plane, a number of them had been sick on themselves, a number of them were just sort of shaky, and it was a very, very rough flight, lots and lots of turbulence flying over the Atlantic. So, but as I said, I have no recollection of it, happily.
Thank you for that.
The worst, or the most dramatic ocean voyage I've been on, I also don't remember it all, but that's when another time we were either going to England, my mother and I were either going to England or coming back from England, and we were on the ship the Veendam, and again across the Atlantic. The Atlantic can be very stormy, depending upon the time of the year that you sail or that you go aboard a ship to cross it, and apparently they ran into a very heavy storm with lots and lots of tremendous amount of turbulence, and it was so bad that the crew members came around and told all the passengers that they were to stay in their cabins, they were not to leave their cabins, and they bolted down. You know, you have portholes, they bolted the portholes down. So that must have been an exciting trip. Again, I have no recollection of it whatsoever, but my mother told me about that.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Now, the nicest
Oh,
ship I've ever been on was a cruise ship. It was a little cruise ship. It only had 90 passengers, and that was very nice. It was a very informal, casual atmosphere. There weren't 10,000 people, and so we went to the Virgin Islands, and it was very nice because we'd pull into a port, and it's like, you know, no big deal, because when one of those big cruise ships pulls into the port, it immediately, you know, all these people are disgorged from the ship, and they basically take over the town. So we didn't have that impact, so it was much more pleasant. And it was a nice little ship. So.
What was the name of the company?
American Cruise Lines.
Are they still around?
I think that they went out of business for a while, but I noticed that they seem to be back again, because I noticed that they're offering cruises. I don't see any Caribbean cruises, which is what we were on, but I noticed that they're cruising the coast of Maine. They are cruising along the coast of Washington, Oregon, and there's a number of others that they're doing. 2 small cruises close to land.
Where did you go in the Virgin Islands?
We went to the Virgin Islands. We wanted to spend some time in St. Thomas before we took the cruise, so we flew into St. Thomas, and we spent 3, 4, 5 days, I don't really remember, in St. Thomas, and then we boarded the cruise ship. So we went to St. Thomas, we went to St. Croix, we went to Virgin Gorda, which is an absolutely incredibly spectacular, beautiful island. We went to Tortola, we went to Salt Island, which is tiny, tiny little island with, I think, 2 people on it who live there year round, and they just basically fish and, you know, do a few little things. It's a very small island. Did we go to any other islands? I don't remember going to any other islands. Obviously, if we did, they didn't stand out in my memory.
How long were you gone for?
I'm thinking we were gone like 10 days, 2 weeks at the most.
Was that a late honeymoon, or what was that?
No, I'd always wanted to go to the Virgin Islands, though, and so it was on my list of places to go to, and so we went. It was back in 1987.
What's left on your list of places to go to? What's on your wish list?
Well, I do want to go to, as you know, I do want to go to North Africa. I want to go back to Italy, and I really want to sort of see so much more of Italy than we saw when we were there last time. I know there's a number of places that you visited that you said are worth visiting in Italy, and of course I really want to go to Sicily. I'd really like to go back to Turkey. I'd like to go to Western Turkey this time. Where else do I want to go? I'm going to go to Costa Rica, and I think that that's eminently doable. And then I really do want to go back to Maine, where so many of Jimmy's ancestors are from, and spend some time back there.
What if money weren't an object? Would that change anything on your travel wish list?
No.
All right. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
We've also got...
You could ask Biscuit what his best and worst experiences, travel experiences are.
That might be an interesting...
I'll probably tell you that the ride from being picked up in the field to back to the animal shelter was probably his worst experience. Well, I take that back.
You got that backwards. I think it'd be the best.
Maybe his best would be the ride home in the car to our house, because I think Biscuit's pretty happy here.
It seems that he is, but the worst would probably be when he got dumped in the field initially.